Political violence once again took the center stage this week as the Democrat establishment continues to crumble. Pope Leo published his first encyclical on AI as anti-AI extremism is on the rise, and a new report on homebuyers highlights exactly what's wrong with modern dating. My name is Ben Corriveau, and this is my show. Okay, so we have a ton of news to get through this week. I know some people would say that this was a quiet news week. It was not. We had a ton of political violence, and just starting off, we had this the Ivanka Trump assassination target that, or assassination plot, I should say. As far as I'm aware, nothing actually came of it. They captured the guy before he actually was able to do anything. But as you see here, I have this pulled up from the New York Post. He targeted Ivanka Trump as a revenge for Trump's attacks on Iran, and this seems to be serious as he actually had blueprints of her Florida home. So thankfully he was captured, and hopefully he's going to be charged soon. Obviously the legal system takes time, so we'll see about that. But that was just the start of the week. We also had shots fired at the White House, which is absolutely insane. This seems to have been another act of political violence targeted towards Trump, potentially another assassination attempt. We don't know yet. It's been about a week because that happened last weekend, I believe. It was like Saturday night. But I haven't seen too much myself personally. So I do have a clip of this just so you can see what was happening. So here it is.
Trump has said a deal is close, only for the two sides to remain far apart.
No.
So you saw that this reporter was literally on the ground with the shots being fired. And I was actually quite aggravated about it because I saw quite a few left-leaning individuals put up that this was another fake. I don't know how every single assassination attempt against Trump is somehow fake because you don't like him. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty clear. There were actually, I believe that it was actually a civilian who was shot and injured. As far as I'm aware, nobody has confirmed whether that was from the Secret Service or the shooter, but the shooter is deceased. He was shot and killed by Secret Service. So at least he was stopped before he could hurt more people. But it's crazy. This is the political reality we live in, because not only did we have this at the White House targeting or allegedly targeting Trump, but we also had a ton of anti-ICE terrorism this week. As you can see right here, I'm just going to play some clips as I'm talking. So first portion of this is literally anti-ICE protesters setting up blockades outside of the ICE detention center, and the ICE officers actually going along with it. Like they were allowing these anti-ICE protesters to inspect and search their vehicles, which is absolutely insane. I mean, the government is supposed to have the authority to enforce laws. Instead, we're bowing down to these radical protesters who have absolutely no business doing any of this. Any U.S. official who is allowing this to happen should be fired. I mean, there's absolutely no reason that we should allow. I mean, realistically, these people are anarchists. They want to take control and have power without being duly elected, which is absolutely insane. That, like I said, there's no reason that we should be allowing this. But on top of this, we also had violence against these ICE officers. And this is something that the left doesn't want you to see. They always want to say that it's ICE being violent against the protesters, but they always try to hide the evidence that the protesters actually are the ones who start the violence most of the time. As you can see in these clips that I'm playing. I mean, they start throwing stuff at the ICE officers. It's just absolutely insane. And this is why these people need to, like, I cannot believe that this is allowed to happen on U.S. soil. These protests have gotten out of hand. This is way beyond your First Amendment right to assemble, peaceably assemble, or free speech. That's way beyond all that. These people need to be rounded up and charged to the fullest extent of the law if we don't want this to happen or escalate further. I mean, I'll even play a clip now, and this one is going to be with volume on, so you can hear. They're literally threatening ICE officers. And they're blatantly saying that they can see the ICE officer's face, and so they're going to kill that man's family. Tell me, how is this not being prosecuted? I mean, this is absolutely insane. And on top of that, Democrat politicians want to make it so that way ICE officers cannot wear masks. Now, I I'll give them the fact that ICE officers probably shouldn't be wearing masks, but I'm not going to give them the credit for saying that. I mean, this is like literally for their own safety, and their family safety, that they have to do this, because Democrat politicians won't charge the people who are actually going out and inciting violence against them. Or even the Democrat politicians, in some cases, are inciting violence against these ICE officers. It's just absolutely crazy. And on top of that, not only did they target ICE, Amy Coney Barrett this weekend was also swatted, which is again crazy. And for those of you who don't know, swatting is when a false police call is made to a police station in order to get a SWAT team to show up and, in some instances, actually kill the homeowner for literally no reason. Like there was no crime committed or nothing, and yeah, they'll show up and thinking that there's some serious crime, like a kidnapping or potentially a murder that's occurred, and they show up, and yeah, that's what happens. Luckily, Amy Coney Barrett has private security, or I don't know if it's private or public, but she had security, and they worked with the police department, and that was resolved. There was nobody harmed in this incident, but this is the level that we are at right now. And that's why this episode is titled "This Has to Stop," because we cannot sustain a country like this. If you have radicals running the country, using violence whenever they don't get their way, you don't have a country anymore. You need to enforce the law, round them all up, and arrest them all. That's the only way we can get away with this. And luckily, the Trump administration started doing this, because actually this week we had a man that was arrested for making threats to kill Erika Kirk ahead of her Turning Point USA event in San Antonio, which I believe that's the WSL, the Women's Summit for Leadership. I believe that's what it's called. If not, you can correct me on that. But yeah, that's a huge event, and they threatened not only to kill her, but to kill other conservatives. As you can see, I have this pulled up from the Independent. You can see some of the quotes in there. For those of you just listening on audio, you aren't watching the video. This man, like I said, I'm not going to reveal his identity, says "Death to Erika Kirk," and every single speaker there. Investigators found a pattern of repeated hostile and threatening posts across several public threads involving people affiliated with or supportive of TPUSA. So this is an absolutely insane person, but once again, it's a leftist. What a surprise when you have people calling for, justifying, celebrating political violence, more people go out and do it. We need to get past that. If you want to have a good society, you cannot have these people running around in it. It's not possible. You cannot have a peaceful society when you have radicals coming out and just ideologically going out and killing people for whatever reason, just because they disagree with it. It's not possible. So luckily, that man was arrested. Hopefully he gets charged. And like I said, hopefully all of these people committing and calling for this violence are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, so we can completely wipe this out, because this has no place in America. But on top of that, we also had a subpoena for Hasan Piker, which was quite interesting. I'll play a clip now of his initial response to this.
Guys, I have not had anything happen to me yet. Like, technically, nothing has happened to me. It's just Fox News is saying things are happening to me. And it's not like there's anything that I've done. But the unfortunate reality here is you don't really have to do anything for this government to decide that they want to do something with you.
He's basically saying that this is a politically motivated investigation against him and that he did nothing wrong. Now, as we went over a few weeks ago, I believe that I titled the episode Champagne Socialists. He did actually commit crimes. He went to Cuba in order to promote the regime there and oppose the United States. This was blatantly stated by him. In certain interviews, he has come out and said that he was working with Cuban officials, which is illegal. He was on video saying that he was forced to stay at a 5-star hotel, which happened to be on a list of hotels that is blatantly prohibited from U.S. citizens actually staying at. So it's kind of crazy that he did all that. And as this all came out, it was funny because he ended up pinning the blame on other people, which is great that he was doing that so we can get all the people who are involved in this to be actually held accountable for it. But as you can see in this clip right here.
Yeah, I think that the target is. I think that ultimately the target is probably Singham and his operation from PSL to Answer Coalition to Co-Pink, like anything that he has ever financed. And it's not new. It's been around for a while, but it's obviously it's held through regardless because like it's ridiculous, right? It's like totally ridiculous to try and to try and stop like the political advocacy of an American citizen, right? Roy Singham is an American citizen. He lives in China now, and he's a centimillionaire. I think he like has almost $1 billion. Not sure how much money he has now, but like he's been a funding vehicle for a lot of like political movements in the country, like a lot of activism, and they hate that. Like the American government hates that, so they're trying to jam him up. You know, they're trying to hit him on anything and everything they possibly can. That's it. That's the goal here. That's the broader goal.
He actually goes and he calls out. I believe it's Neville Roy Singham. I believe that's his name. He's one of the biggest leftist donors, and he's pinning the blame on him and saying that, well, I don't even know what does it benefit you to arrest me? Obviously, this is what these people do. They will turn on the people who they support in an instant once it benefits them, because once they're about to be held accountable, they don't want to be held accountable. They want to pin it on somebody else, and that's what these people are. You cannot trust them for anything because they will always turn on you. But luckily, he's ratting on some other people, and like I said before, hopefully we can hold them all accountable under due process, so that way they get a fair trial and they will be held accountable as best as possible for what they are doing. On top of that, we also had some news this week about the funding of both national committees. This is obviously the RNC and the DNC, RNC being the Republican National Committee, DNC being the Democrat National Committee. And this was quite interesting because it highlights a trend that we've been seeing. I've said this before, Democrats aren't doing too well. They haven't been doing well. They're extremely unpopular, like record levels of unpopularity. Now, the Republican Party isn't necessarily popular either, but they are more popular than the Democrat Party right now. And this is kind of proven by how much money they have, because the RNC, the Republican National Committee, currently has $124 million cash on hand, and they have $0 in debt. Compare that to the Democrat National Committee, which has $14.4 million cash on hand with $17.5 million in debt. They have net negative cash, which is absolutely insane. This is for a national party. This is why, like, you can't believe people when they're telling you that the Democrats are going to steamroll everybody in this election cycle and that they're doing well. They aren't. I cannot believe that the Democrat Party has lasted as long as they have between this past year. I mean, genuinely, in terms of popularity, like policy, they don't have any good policies. I'll get into it in a little bit. And even like now, you can see in the finances, they're net negative on cash, and you can't sustain an organization like that. So if I had to guess, what's probably going to happen is in the future, we're either going to see a realignment of the Democrat Party to be more moderate, or you're going to see it break into several factions. But I think that's more far out, and I do think that a more moderate realignment is more likely to happen. Difficult to tell, though, with how radical they've become in recent years, especially, as I was saying, with all this political violence stuff. But on top of that, we also had some absolutely awful policies that these Democrats or Democrat socialists are pushing that completely unpopular. And I mean, it's just putting the Democrat Party in the grave even sooner. I mean, first we have this clip from Mamdani.
Finally, through our new citywide campaign, Fix the City, We will focus on the worst landlords in New York City. When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves.
In that clip, you heard him say he wants to take private property and give it away. And his reasoning for this is that these are negligent owners that are renting the property out to others, and they're going to confiscate that private property from them and give it to somebody who is actually capable of caring for it. Now, this doesn't make sense on several levels. To begin with, a lot of the reason why these properties are negligent is because of the restrictions that Mamdani and other Democrats have placed on these renters in New York City, whether it be rent control, which means that they cannot raise the rent, or other maintenance requirements that they need to have for, such as inspection, where as time has gone on and prices have increased for everything else, the renter is not allowed to increase prices. So therefore, they're actually losing money a lot of times on these properties, or they're breaking even, at which point it doesn't make sense for them to continue operating on that and actually fixing it up and maintaining it, which is why these apartments tend to be negligent. Now, when you look at who they're going to give it to, they want to either give it to nonprofit organizations. I believe that they said that there was a governmental organization that they were considering giving it to, or the tenants themselves. Now, if you give it to a governmental organization, that's going to be bad because the governmental organization doesn't know what your requirements are, and they obviously operate on taxpayer funds. So if you are using taxpayer funds to actually go and maintain these buildings, you're going to realize quickly that a lot of the regulations that you have in place are costing you money. And because they want to maintain these policies, they aren't going to eliminate them. What they're going to do is they're going to raise taxes on everyday Americans, and in this case, New Yorkers, because that's how this works. You need money to actually get these policies done, and that's what Zoran Mamdani and all socialists don't understand. You need actual resources to accomplish the goals that you want. So that's why the government policies won't work. Nonprofits don't necessarily work because what they're going to do is, obviously they're working on limited budgets, so they're going to take control of it. They're going to realize that it's not profitable for them to some extent, and it's going to fall into disrepair again. And then Zoran Mamdani is going to go and take the property away from them again. And then if you have the tenants, a lot of these people haven't owned property before. They haven't owned a property. So in that case, how do you, they don't have the knowledge of how to properly maintain a property or what the costs are. And in a lot of these cases, these renters aren't actually paying for all the utilities that they're using or all the maintenance that is required by the renters. So when they have to do it, they're going to realize just how expensive it is, and they're most likely going to leave, leading to less taxpayers in New York City. And all this is just common sense. You don't need an economics degree to understand this. That's why these policies don't work. And that's why they're so radical and so unpopular. But Zoran Mamdani and socialists, like I said before, they're economically illiterate. They won't listen to you. They don't have common sense. So it's just crazy that this is actually the state of the country that we're living in, that we have a literal socialist threatening to take away private property and give it away to other people without actually considering the consequences of that. But on top of that, we also have further radical Democrat policies on the other side of the country in California with Gavin Newsom. He had two crazy policies that he pushed this week. The first of them was his quote-unquote 100% tax on the weaponization fund, or distributions of the weaponization fund that Trump instituted last week, which we went over, and you can go watch that video to check it out. But Trump instituted this weaponization fund in order to actually provide restitution to individuals that were wrongly prosecuted or targeted by the federal government. And Gavin Newsom doesn't like that. So what is he going to do? He's going to tax 100% of the money that you are receiving from the federal government because he just doesn't like Trump and he doesn't like that you were politically targeted. So in this instance, I don't necessarily know whether or not any law. So, for example, if you live in California and you are subjected to this 100% tax, I don't currently know how that lawsuit would turn out, just because of the way that certain other lawsuits have been turning out. Because I saw earlier today, it came out that a judge blocked the weaponization fund that Trump instituted. So we'll see. I don't necessarily know if that would be possible or what's going to happen, but it would certainly be interesting to see that lawsuit happen in the first place. And on top of that, but Gavin Newsom also, he actually came out and I don't know if he passed legislation or if it was an executive order, but he essentially signed into what is effectively a law that he will not allow federal enforcement of election laws, which is blatantly unconstitutional. There's this thing called the Supremacy Clause, which gives the federal government power over things that the states don't have the right to control. And in this case, federal elections are, for the most part, handled by the federal government. I've already gone over this in the past. The only thing that the federal government cannot control of federal elections is the places where senators are chosen. That's left to the states. All other federal election handling is up to the federal government. But blatantly unconstitutional. That is absolutely going to get challenged if it hasn't already. I know I heard some people saying that they were going to nullify it. So we'll see, but that is almost certainly going absolutely nowhere. There's no legal basis for it as far as I'm aware. So Gavin Newsom is just saying stuff just to try to gain support for his base, I guess. But I really think that a lot of these things that they're doing are just extremely unpopular because, I mean, like I said, with the taking away private property, any rational person in New York City realizes that's bad. If you're a renter, you're going to be against that policy. And if you have any economic understanding of how this economics work, you would realize that that's bad policy and that if they can take away your private property in terms of your actual real estate property, what other private property can they not take away from you? So that's obviously going to be incredibly unpopular. The weaponization fund is unpopular for literally anybody who was targeted by this political lawfare. So that's obviously going. I guess in California it's not going to be as dead on arrival, but just about anywhere in the country that would be dead on arrival. And even this, the federal enforcement of election laws, the most particular one on this is preventing illegal aliens from voting in elections, because this has literally 80% support across the country. This is essentially what the Save America Act wants to accomplish, preventing illegal aliens from voting in our elections. And Gavin Newsom is preventing that. So extremely unpopular. I hope that the Democrats keep on pushing this stuff. I mean, if they want to keep on losing, please keep on doing this. I would love to see it. But not only that, they've been losing support of even like diehard Democrats, because this one, obviously we had Memorial Day on Monday, and for those of you who don't know, this is a day where we remember all the fallen veterans that have died for us, because obviously we live free, and these people go overseas, they serve domestically, all over the world, realistically. And they do everything in their power to protect our right to live free, so we don't have to go out there and see the violence that they experience on a daily basis. And Democrats, obviously over the years, they've tended to be less and less supportive of America as the whole, but this brought them to a whole new low, because they put up a post. I have it up on screen now. You can say, "Today we honor the American heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice in Trump's war with Iran." Now, that's just absolutely despicable to me. I mean, we're supposed to come together as a country and remember all the fallen soldiers, and they want to turn it into an anti-Trump thing. I mean, when you have a party that cannot even unite with you to celebrate the fallen soldiers of that country, the men and women who died for us to live free, They can't put aside politics for that. That just shows you that they don't care about this country. And it's crazy to me, especially because I hear so often, like a lot of my friends, I've said this before, a lot of my friends are left leaning, and they'll always tell me that conservatives are the ones that are dividing America. No, I fail. If Democrats are the ones putting out this message, politicizing Memorial Day, how is that conservatives' fault? Conservatives didn't politicize it. We honored the fallen members of men and women of our nation's armed services, and that's what we did. And then the Democrats had to go and make it political. And all of a sudden, it's Republicans' problem for caring about that. No, that's not how this works. It's just crazy. I mean, I really wish that Democrats would be able to see that they are the ones dividing this country, and we cannot unite as a country until those that are dividing us actually unite with us. And it's looking like that's getting increasingly less and less likely as time goes on, which is truly sad. I mean, like I've said this before, with all the political violence going on, you would think that people would take a moment and recognize that we're all humans and we need to work together to actually work towards the betterment of our country and actually support it, as opposed to fighting each other all day, every day over this. But they can't put aside that. And they need to push these radical policies that are just not based in any sort of reality whatsoever. But that's enough about that. Obviously, I got a little bit heated there. But we also had this week some AI news come out. So start off with, this is something that I previously reported on, and actually I put out a video on this about why people hate AI so much. And it turns out that the U.S. law enforcement is now warning people about anti-tech extremism, with a ton of people actually being more and more willing to enact violence in order to stop AI from happening. Which I talked about this, like I said, probably about a month or two ago, where this was literally about technology in a video game and people reporting on it, not even the developers of the technology, people reporting on that technology received death threats, which I told you was radical then and kind of foresaw that this was going to happen. But this is what's happening, and this is from Wired. So you can see here, among the documents in the tranche obtained by Wired is a New York Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau report that warns of widespread upheaval in response to AI adoption. Of particular note is a novel term for what the Bureau purports to be an emergent extremism threat. The chaotic atmosphere that may result from emergent AI technology in the next 5 years may fuel large-scale protests that devolve into civil unrest and anti-tech violent extremist activity, especially in large urban areas such as New York City. And this isn't just based on projections. This is actually based on reality, because in this same article, it goes on and explains, in the same Intelligence Bureau assessment, analysts also describe a novel threat emerging in the wake of the arrest and trial of Ziz Leota, an extreme rationalist who allegedly led a small cult-like group, 3 members of which have been charged with murder tied to an obsessive ideology focused on the existential risk posed by AI. So these people are actually going out and killing other people because they hate AI so much, which is just crazy. I mean, this is a technological advancement. I'm not saying that it's all good, because there are definitely problems with it, but it's not all bad either, and that's what people need to recognize. And there's absolutely no reason why we should be killing people because of this development. And luckily, as I said in my intro, Pope Leo actually developed he wrote his first encyclical completely on AI, and that was released this past week. It's the Magnifica Humanitas. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to read it. It's quite long, so I've been making my way through it. I got a lot of summary of it, but I did pick out a few quotes that I felt were really important about it to share. The first one of them is the opening of it, which is, humanity, created by God in all its grandeur, is today facing a pivotal choice, either to construct a new Tower of Babel or to build the city in which God and humanity dwell together. This is obviously a great intro into this, because obviously that's what AI presents. It presents us 2 paths. We can either go down the path of idolizing the AI and free markets and everything so that we no longer focus on God or working together or anything like that. We focus entirely on building a material construct that will I don't even know. I mean, just prove our intellect, I guess, make us more egotistical, or we could harness this technology in a way to further expand our knowledge and pursuit of truth while still recognizing that God is the ultimate good in society and in general. But that's the important thing, that we focus on that and actually respecting the human dignity of others, as opposed to just using AI for everything, eliminating all human jobs, essentially making it so that way no human is able to properly sustain themselves in the world without using as they're being replaced by AI. And the second quote that I wanted to bring up to reference was, "Our first task is neither to demonize nor idolize technological tools, but to utilize them on the basis of a fundamental principle, namely that truth is a common good and not the property of those with power or influence." And this is another important quote because this is actually something that I was taught in university when I was going before I graduated. But this is also incredibly important to recognize that, yes, truth is something that we should all be pursuing, and it is there's absolute truth. That's what we should all be focusing on. And if we have technology that aids us in that pursuit, we shouldn't demonize it. We should actually support it. But at the same time, we need to recognize its shortcomings, and that's why we don't want to create an idol of it, or a false idol, like some people have been, where they believe that it's essentially another human, and that's another whole topic that I won't get into now. But we cannot idolize nor can we demonize it if we want to actually continue to pursue the actual truth and absolute truth of the universe. And on top of that, it's also important to recognize, as is referenced in this quote, that the people developing this technology shouldn't have full control over what the artificial intelligence actually produces, because if they have control over it, then it's not actually presenting us with absolute truth, and therefore is inhibiting our pursuit of that absolute truth. And it's very insightful that he would even say this, because it's incredibly important to recognize that the people developing this stuff actually do have a say in how it's used and how people interact with it. And if they don't have the right priorities in place, it is very easy for this tool to be weaponized against those, to spread false information or misleading information that tends to help one political ideology or one idea over another, when it realistically shouldn't, and we should all be pursuing absolute truth instead. So we had that. In addition to that, we also had some huge news broken by James O'Keefe this past week, which was that there was an executive at the Washington Nationals, this is a baseball team, where he explicitly said that he discriminated against Christian players, they tracked fans, and had a communist agenda. And you can see this, I have this up from the Daily Caller. For those of you just listening, this is a direct quote from this article, where talking about Williams, Hudson stated that he is very Catholic, noting that the Los Angeles Dodgers featured a drag group that was anti-Catholic during a Pride night they hosted. The group, which calls itself Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, was criticized after wearing nun costumes and performing on a crucifix. Baseball stadiums should be a place where everyone feels welcome, like 100%. We should all feel welcome there, but that was clearly against one certain religion. If you don't draw the line in the sand, who's going to do it? Said Williams in 2025 to Bishop Robert Barron about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and their 2023 performance. The Dodgers had a group out to the stadium who were drag queens who sometimes dressed up as nuns. Williams went on, like a social media, like, "This is wrong. This is my religion. You all are mocking it," said Hudson, adding that we don't use him on social media because he chose to spoke out. So they were explicitly excluding Williams because he was Catholic, and he was actually voicing his belief, which is something that is actually protected in this country. You cannot discriminate against people for their religion, especially not Christianity, as that is the foundation of this country, whether you like it or not. I don't know why people are always against against accepting the idea that this nation is a Christian nation. Yes, you have the right to practice any religion that you want. That doesn't change the fact that the principles that this country was founding on were Christian. But this article goes on to explain that they were actually tracking fans who go into the games, where they were saying, this is a direct quote, "If you ever come to a Nats game, there is someone on our team who's responsible for figuring out everything about you, given your purchasing habits, what teams you come to when the Nats play, like what teams you come, and assigning you into a bucket of people and then catering content to you." And that's already crazy that they're actually collecting all this information, but it's crazy, but it shouldn't be surprising to anybody given how just about the entire world works now, with everybody tracking every single little thing you do on your phone or any device that you go on. But it's crazy that this is even happening at baseball stadiums. But he goes even further, and this is something that is absolutely insane to me, where he said that individuals will say, "I don't want to think about that bleep when they come to baseball games," referring to political ideology. In this case, he's said that he's a communist. But if you're a sports fan and we blank you off, where else are you going to go? Are you going to drive past us from Virginia to go to Baltimore? Either way, I don't give a bleep. Now, this is just absolutely insane. And this shows that these people have no shame whatsoever. They say, "Oh, yeah, you're going to give me your money anyway, so I'm going to subject you to whatever I want you to." We really need to change that. That's why we need more boycotts of stuff like this. I mean, they do actually work. You need to make these people financially hurt if you want them to actually represent your values. And in this case, he's blatantly saying that he doesn't care about your values. He's going to do everything in his power to go against your values just because he knows that you're going to be forced to do it. And luckily today, I believe it was today, it was either today or late yesterday, this man was fired, so he's no longer part of that team. Hopefully it was just him, although I doubt it. If as much as he claimed was happening, I doubt it was just him. So we'll see. Hopefully more people are held accountable for this, but this is a good first step. And like I said before, we need more boycotts of stuff like this. If you want a society that actually represents your values, you need to boycott the industries and organizations that are pushing ideologies and ideas that you don't support. That's just how it needs to go. Getting past that, we also had this week reports of a E.G. Carroll criminal probe. I have this up from CBS News, and this was just revealed, I believe it was today, that this wasn't actually a criminal probe of her. This was a criminal probe of Reid Hoffman, and this was just part of that information gathering operation because it says that they're investigating a nonprofit run by Reid Hoffman. Obviously, he's another one of these big leftist donors. And so it's definitely interesting because the original story was that they were investigating her for perjuring herself because she had previously, in her lawsuits against Trump, said that she wasn't being funded by any other organizations. It was just her funding it. But then it came out that Reid Hoffman, by one of his sub-organizations, his nonprofits, was actually funding at least partially the lawsuits. So turns out that that's not the case. They aren't charging her. They're going after Reid Hoffman, and that it's just part of that investigation. So our last major story of the night, and this is something that I didn't see anybody report. I'm wondering if it's just because people are tired of hearing it. But this is from ABC News. Single Gen Z women outpace Gen Z men to home ownership as first-time buyers decline. Now, this is a new report that came out this past week where it turns out that Gen Z home buyers are much more likely to be, It says single women across the generation made up a quarter of all home buyers in the July 2024 to June 2025 period, according to NAR. Single men, meanwhile, accounted for 11% of all home purchases. So single women in Gen Z are buying homes at a significantly higher rate than men, which is quite interesting. And as I said in my intro, this is a huge problem for modern dating. And this kind of just, it continues to show the problem that we're experiencing. Now, I'll get to why or what's causing this problem. But to start out with, I want to look into what do women look for in men. This is an evolutionary analysis, so you could see what the traditional assumption is for what women look for in men. So this says, this is from Science Insights, the initial subconscious spark of attraction is a rapid assessment of a man's genetic fitness and potential to provide resources. This assessment relies on physical and behavioral markers that signal underlying health and reproductive quality. Symmetrical face features, for instance, are considered attractive because they indicate developmental stability and resistance to environmental stressors. Testosterone-driven features such as a strong jawline, prominent brow ridge, and broader chin are frequently rated as more attractive. These masculine traits are costly to produce as high testosterone levels can suppress the immune system. Therefore, a man possessing these features signals a robust immune system capable of handling the hormonal load. While physical cues signal good genes, women also value behavioral markers, suggesting a capacity for resource acquisition and stable investment. Traits like intelligence, emotional stability, and the ability to provide financially are prioritized, especially for a long-term partner. This preference reflects the need for a mate who can contribute to raising children. Actions such as displays of confidence, calculated risk-taking, or competitive helping behavior may function as signals of status and ability to protect and provide. All that to say, women want men who are masculine and can provide for them. This is the historical basis for it. Now, I do want to bring up a more recent phenomenon further instilling this, which is that the I'm looking for a man in finance trend, which went viral last year, where this was a TikTok video. A woman published this, mocking a lot of the women with extremely high standards. And the point of it basically came down to they want a man who makes six figures. He's like 6'5". It's part of the video is that. And that he works in finance. So he's tall, he's attractive, he works in finance, so he's making a ton of money, and he can provide for her. And we have this from CNBC. You can see this is a direct quote. So we've heard so much about how bad the dating apps are, how dire the dating landscape is, said Casey Lewis, a social media trend expert and founder of trend newsletter After School. There are a lot of single women who are looking but not finding what they want. And she goes on to say that there's this feeling that no matter how hard women work, we're still barely making ends meet. And there's this sort of feeling like if I just lock down a man in finance, then you're kind of made. The finance guy can probably take care of you and shower you with nice things. It's appealing. So again, further reinforcing the idea that women, even modern women, no matter how much they want to say that they don't, they want men who will support them. And one thing, and there are tons of reasons why this is actually causing problems for the dating market. The first is the pay gap. I mean, and this is the biggest myth in feminism that currently exists. So I actually have this pulled up. This is from Pay Scale. They conduct a yearly analysis on the quote unquote wage gap between men and women. And if you look at this, so realistically, we should be using the controlled pay gap, which they have here. So women earn 99 cents for every $1 earned by a man. Now, the reason we should be using the controlled is because this is the median salary for a man and a woman that have the same exact qualifications and have the same exact job. So that means that if you are a man or a woman working in the same job, you are basically getting the same salary. And if I had to guess, this is very likely to be within margin of error, the 1 cent difference. So that's the reality. Then we have this fake statistic, the quote-unquote uncontrolled gender pay gap, which just measures the median salary for all women compared to all men. Now, this logically doesn't make sense because men tend to take more dangerous jobs than women, and they also tend to take lower quality jobs than women. So therefore, the normal distribution tends to be that men overall, they have more high-paying jobs and they have more low-paying jobs, which tends to bump up their median salary compared to women who all tend to lump more towards the center and have less of a standard deviation between them. And that's why the uncontrolled gender pay gap is 82 cents. And this is the statistic that everybody cites, the 82 cents, not the 99 cents, which is the actual reality of the situation. But as both men and women tend to make more money now, it's becoming harder and harder for men to be the provider in these relationships, which, as we just went over, women want men to be the provider. So if you're eliminating that, then like how is that actually benefiting the market, or the dating market, I should say. On top of that, we also have the political divide between men and women, because one of the best indicators of a good relationship is that you have similar values, and right now your values tend to your values tend to be illustrated best by your political ideology. So we have this from NBC News, and women are becoming extremely liberal leaning, while men are becoming more conservative leaning. So this divide is obviously hurting relations. Here you can see right here, we have the basis of people identifying themselves as Democrat. So we have 53% of females age 18 to 29, which is Gen Z, are considering themselves Democrats compared to 35% of males. So that's crazy right there. And then if you look at the Republican side, we have 38% males identifying as Republican, with only 20% of females identifying as Republican. So that is a crazy difference. And it just shows that there's a huge gap between what men and women are actually supporting in their ideologies. And if men and women don't agree on their basic values, they're not going to have good relationships with each other, and that makes it harder for you to date in the first place. But on top of that, even getting past your political party, you can just see a cross-party approval on Trump, where men have a 45% approval rating of Trump, as opposed to 24% for females. That's crazy. That's a 20-point swing between men and women of the same generation. This is why there's so many problems with relationships now. And I mean, I've experienced it myself, because I'm a young man. I'm part of Gen Z. It's difficult to find good women nowadays, and at the same time, it's also difficult for women to find good men, because they're being indoctrinated by both ideologies. I would say you have on the liberal side, you have all the progressive and woke people who are saying that masculinity is toxic. All masculinity is toxic, and you have to represent femininity to properly be a man in society. So that's where a lot of liberal men tend to go. Or you have the red pill movement, which is people like Andrew Tate telling you that women are just in it for money. They should be your slaves, and like you should sleep with as many women as you can. And he's absolutely wrong about that too. We need something in the middle. We need back to tradition. This is why I'm a conservative. I'm not a libertarian. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a leftist. I'm a conservative. I support going back to tradition and reinvigorating the values that actually gave us this great society that we live in now. And if we do that, then we won't have to deal with this political divide, because people will actually unite together and realize that men and women are complementary and we need each other. But even getting past that, another big indicator of relationship success is how educated you are. Between the man and the woman, typically you want somebody who is at a similar education level to yourself, so you can continue to challenge and encourage each other to actually progress in your education and continue to become better and smarter. But we have this from the Atlantic. Women are now more likely to marry a less educated man than men are to marry a less educated woman, because women are going to college at higher rates than men. And this is, again, another part of this feminization of society, where we have overcorrected. In the past, there were discrepancies between men and women in the workforce. And whether you like it or not, that was the case. And this is an attempt to correct that. And this correction has had, from what I would say, completely predictable consequences, but some would say unforeseen consequences, where if you actually go ahead and tear apart the system that we had that was working, it makes sense that you would have all these problems. So that's why there's this huge education divide too, again, causing to even more difficulty in finding a good partner, or as I would say, a spouse. But on top of that, we also have the unrealistic standards that women have of men. So like I said before, as I said in that, referring to that trend, the I'm looking for a man in finance trend, where they have crazy standards for income and height. On top of that, we also have a huge discrepancy in how women view male attractiveness. And this is a study that was conducted years ago of OkCupid. And you can see here, this is the distribution of how men rate women and how women rate men on a scale of most attractive to least attractive. And this is important to recognize, because you would expect there to be a normal distribution where you have a small amount of people who are extremely attractive, a large portion of people who are extremely unattractive, and a vast majority of people being in that middle category between the two extremes. Now, if you look at how men rate women, this is actually the case. You can see here we actually have a pretty perfect bell curve. And I guess there's a little bit more lopsided on the slightly least attractive side, but it's only about 1% difference compared to the most attractive side, and it's basically a normal distribution. That's what we are expecting. But if you look at how women rate men, it's the complete opposite, where we have almost every single man. We have, what is that? 58% of men are within the two least attractive categories. And if you take all three least attractive, so this is anything below average, realistically, we have, what is that? 54. We have 81% of men are like unattractive or below average attractiveness according to women. This is why people say that there are huge problems with this, and women have too high standards, because if you look at the attractiveness, that's unrealistic. Like I said before, you would expect the graph to be a normalized graph or a bell curve, with most people being in the middle, and it would be slightly less or increasingly less while reaching both extremes. That's not the case here. And then finally, what probably the biggest reason that there's a divide between men and women in the dating market right now is because men and women want different things. And we have this up from Forbes. This was last year, I believe, where women want careers and men want children and to get married. This is the first time in history that this is the case, where men, and this is also it's split into political affiliation or political belief, because men who are Trump voters, their priority is having children, then finding financial independence, and finally being married. Those are the top three. For women who voted for Kamala Harris, the first is a fulfilling job or career, then having money to do things that you want, and finally emotional stability. Then men who voted for Harris they want a fulfilling job and career, having money what they want to do, and then marriage and children are their 3 and 4. And for women who are Trump voters, they still prioritize financial independence and job or career over having children and marriage. Now, having children and marriage are still higher than both what the women who voted for Kamala Harris as well as men who voted for Kamala Harris were, but the men still want children and to get married more than women do, which is absolutely insane, because historically women have been the ones who have wanted that. This is another huge driver in this, because they can't even agree on what they want in their lives. And the other important thing to note on all this is that on top of this, because obviously the big push is that feminism is the reason that all this is good. All these things that they're actually pushing for are good because it's feminism. But if you look at statistics, this is actually from Yale Law School. This was published in 2008. The happiness of women has actually declined as more of these policies have been implemented. And this is literally titled Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. I'm not going to put it up on screen because it is quite long. The link will be in this description as I put all my sources there, so you can take a look and correct me if I'm wrong on any of that. But this is literally a study that they did at Yale Law School. Women are less happy now with all these policies. You would think that it would be the opposite, that the more liberated they became, the more happy they were. But that's not the actual case. And this is why feminism is explicitly to blame for this. And as I went over before, this isn't just a feminism problem. Now, to be fair, feminism is responsible for a lot of this, and that's why women have such high expectations now, and they are promoting men to be more feminine than masculine. But that does not mean that the men aren't the problem either. Because like I said before, there are a lot of red pill people who are pushing things too far in the opposite direction, where they're saying that masculinity is way more important than femininity. And that's not necessarily true. We need a balance of the two. Men and women are meant to be complementary. Not like what the feminists say, that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, because that was literally the basis of feminism. That's not what we want to support. We need to support a union of man and woman such that they become one flesh as it is intended by God, as anybody who's read the Bible can tell you. That's how it's supposed to be intended. We're complementary creatures, and we should be focused on reuniting and actually becoming better as opposed to dividing amongst each other and literally hating each other for no reason other than that we're different. But that's all that I have for the serious news today, and I know that was quite a lot, and I know it's very difficult hearing a lot of this news, and that's why I decided that starting this week I'm going to host a new segment on the show. I right now I'm going to call it the Happy Hour segment. I still haven't worked out a proper name for it, but for now that's what I'm going to stick with. And this segment's going to be just bringing you some non-political good news of the week, some feel-good news, so that way we can all actually take a break from the divisiveness of politics and all the craziness that we have to see, all the horrors of the world, so we can just focus on the good for a little bit. Because obviously I try to be a positive person. If you know me in person, that's how I try to be most of the time. Despite all these problems that I talk about, I want to be that positive voice in your life right now. And my whole basis on this is to follow in the footsteps of what John Krasinski did in 2020 with COVID, with his Some Good News segment that he would do. I believe he did it weekly back then. That was a huge influence on me. So let's get into that. This week's story is that we had a young girl. She lived in Ohio, and she had a neighbor who he had just moved in, and he would go outside and play his guitar. And this young girl was a huge Taylor Swift fan. So I'll play the video from her mother so you can see what happened.
You gotta do it in front so he knows.
Hey man, my daughter threw a paper plate over. She has a request. You got it? Thank you, man.
A winter shirt on, no. Julia, I'll come on the staircase, begging you please don't go. And I said, Romeo, take me somewhere you can be alone. I'll be waiting. All you have to do is run. I'll be the princess.
Yep. So you see, she created a paper airplane with a little note on it asking him to play some Taylor Swift music for her. And she flew it over, and he started playing Taylor Swift music for her, which is absolutely great in the first place that he was willing to do that for her. I don't know if he knew it off the top of his head, but that's absolutely great. He probably made that little girl's day. But this story doesn't end there. And this is why it's actually news now, because this happened just a few days ago, where Taylor Swift actually saw this clip, and she ended up sending them out some stuff, personal stuff. So she sent out a signed guitar with a handwritten note telling her that the clip brought the biggest smile to her face, and that she just wanted to let you know that it made me so happy that you asked your neighbor to play my song for you. You brought the biggest smile to my face. I'm sending you your own guitar in case you ever want to learn too. So absolutely heartwarming story. Obviously, this made this girl's day. It's great to see people like Taylor Swift going out and actually supporting her fans. Obviously, she's huge on that. I know that's a big thing in her community. But yeah, just absolutely great news. But between the little girl and her neighbor growing together in community by actually having him play a song for her that she wanted, plus with Taylor Swift going out and sending it, it's just great news all around. So that's all that I have for you today. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this every week. So if you have any feel-good stories that are non-political, please feel free to send them to me. You can just DM me, and I'll try to go through them and find pictures. If you want to comment them on this video, you can do that too. But thank you very much for watching. Like I said before, I hope you really enjoy the content I make. I I do this for free. I don't make any money off of this. So if you could please like and subscribe this and share it around, that would be greatly appreciated by me. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good night, and I'll see you next week on the Ben Corriveau Show.